On March 21, 2018, the kind of soft, steady rain that feels harmless fell across Highway 101 near Goleta, California. It wasn't a storm. It wasn't heavy enough to alarm anyone. It was simply the kind of drizzle drivers go through without a second thought. 18-year-old Sofia Gomez was driving home from a volunteer shift that morning, taking the same familiar route she had used hundreds of times. She was in her small silver Toyota Corolla, seatbelt fastened, phone tucked away, and the radio playing quietly. There was nothing unusual about her drive. Traffic moved smoothly, visibility was fine, and the road seemed as predictable as any other rainy day. But CHP investigators would later explain something few drivers know. The first hour of rainfall is the most dangerous because oil rises to the surface and creates an invisible slick across the asphalt. Sofia didn't know that. Most people don't. As she approached Cathedral Oaks Road, the car in front of her tapped its brakes lightly. Nothing alarming, just a small adjustment. Sofia pressed her brakes gently in response. That's when her tires lost contact with the pavement. Hydroplaning doesn't announce itself. There's no skid sound, no violent swerve, no dramatic splash. The steering wheel simply goes light, as if the car itself is suddenly weightless. Sofia's car drifted, at first slowly and almost gracefully, before slipping sideways across the lane. A driver behind her later told investigators that it looked as though her car was gliding on air, with no sign of panic or overcorrection, just a complete loss of traction. The Corolla spun 90 degrees, then 180, sliding helplessly across the wet highway. A Dodge Ram traveling around 50 miles per hour struck the passenger side, pushing both vehicles toward the shoulder. Emergency responders arrived quickly, but the impact had been severe. Sofia was pronounced dead at the scene. CHP's final statement was heartbreaking in its simplicity. This was not driver error. This was loss of traction on wet pavement, a hazard that can happen to any driver. And that week alone, 3 other cars hydroplaned and crashed on the same stretch of road. Every driver said the same thing. They never saw the danger coming. Because hydroplaning isn't dramatic. It's silent. It's ordinary. And it's one of the dangers people ignore every single day. And the truth is, we ignore risks not because they're rare, but because they're familiar. And nowhere is that more tragically clear than inside a hospital room in Boulder, Colorado. On February 3, 2014, inside Boulder Community Health in Colorado, the morning felt calm in the way hospitals often do. Nurses finished their rounds, monitors beeped steadily, and everything appeared in order. Among the patients was Michael Wallace, a 56-year-old man recovering after surgery. He had spoken to his wife just an hour earlier, reassuring her that he felt tired but okay. In a place built on safety, structure, and routine, no one imagined anything was about to go terribly wrong. Around 9:40 a.m., a nurse stepped into Michael's room and immediately sensed something was off. He wasn't responsive, his breathing was shallow, and his pulse was growing weaker. Without hesitation, she grabbed the wall-mounted phone beside his bed to call 911. What she didn't realize, what most people in that hospital didn't realize, was that their phone system wasn't programmed to dial 911 directly. To reach emergency services, callers first had to dial an outside line by pressing 9, and only then dial 911. It was an outdated design, a small technical quirk that staff had worked around for years without thinking about it. But when panic hits, even trained professionals fall back on instinct, not procedure. She dialed 911, expecting the call to go through immediately. It didn't. She tried again, her voice shaking as she pressed the numbers. Nothing. Another nurse came in, tried the same sequence, and again, the call failed to connect. Each failed attempt cost precious seconds. In cardiac emergencies, every minute without intervention can decrease the chance of survival by up to 10%. Michael didn't have minutes to spare. The nurses tried again, finally remembering to dial 9 first, and the call went through. Paramedics rushed in as fast as they could, but the delay had already taken its toll. Michael went into cardiac arrest shortly afterward, and despite the efforts of the medical team, he didn't survive. When investigators reviewed the incident, they discovered something both shocking and painfully mundane. The hospital had received complaints before about the confusing phone system. Some staff had mentioned the dialing issue in internal memos, but because it had never caused a real problem, no one saw it as dangerous. It was a tiny inconvenience, an everyday annoyance, until the day it cost a life. Colorado regulators later stated, this was a preventable delay, a known hazard overlooked. And that's what made the tragedy so haunting. The danger wasn't dramatic, hidden, or unpredictable. It was a simple detail everyone had gotten used to, until the moment it mattered more than anything. Two entirely different places, a wet California highway and a quiet Colorado hospital. Two people who had no connection to each other. Two situations that should have been safe. And yet, both stories share the exact same lesson. The greatest dangers are often the ones we stop noticing. Sophia didn't ignore the rules of the road. She ignored how slippery a barely wet surface can become, because every driver believes a little rain is harmless. The nurses at Boulder didn't ignore their training. They ignored a tiny inconvenience in a phone system because it had never caused trouble before. The danger in both cases wasn't recklessness or carelessness. It was familiarity, routine, that subtle confidence we all develop when something seems too ordinary to be threatening. The truth is, the danger you ignore every day isn't the dramatic one. It's the quiet one, the one hiding in the background, the one you've seen so many times that it no longer registers as danger at all. A thin layer of water, a forgotten dialing step, a moment that seems too small to matter until it becomes the only moment that matters. And that's why these stories exist, not to scare you, but to remind you that awareness is not just for emergencies. It's for the everyday details we casually overlook. Because the danger you ignore every day is the one that always catches you when you least expect it.